So welcome our third session participants and professors.
So, does it work there? Yes. We'll continue our dialogue. The only thing that we have to remind you is that a dialogue doesn't mean mixing up things. We are not a new age movement. And if this was the case, I wouldn't be here. So, and because I'm a gourmet, I know that if you mix up Greek food with Chinese food, it doesn't taste well. So please don't mix up, for instance, Sunnism with Roman Catholicism or any other religion. So now I'm giving the chair to Professor Gregory Baum that will talk about about Benedict XVI, the Pope, and education dialogue, the education of Pope Benedict XVI.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. It is true that I was going to talk about Benedict XVI and his attitude towards interreligious dialogue, but I changed my mind. I'll talk about something else. I mean, I have a paper which I left in the car, which I wrote, in which I show that the Pope changed his mind several times. A number of times he was critical of interreligious dialogue because he thought it would lead to relativism. And at other times, just recently, he was in Jerusalem and spoke to a group of Jews, Christians, and Muslims. And he gave a long speech, a marvelous speech, in which he defended interreligious dialogue. He urged that it was necessary, and he gave theological reasons for it. I want to talk about something quite different. I want to tell you how I heard about Reverend Gulen. In Montreal, there is a dialogue foundation, and this group of Turkish Muslims invites Montrealers once a year for a special iftar supper during Ramadan. And then they introduce us to Gulen and to the Gulen movement, and there were little speeches and there was some films, and I was fascinated by this, and I began to read Gulen. With their help, I got all the books and articles that exist in English. I read this. I wrote about him. I'm very excited about him. I'm interested in Islam, Islamic theology, and I want to talk about this. I want to talk about why I have such a good understanding of the wrestling of Muslim thinkers today with encountering the modern world. I have this because Catholicism had to wrestle with this in the 19th and 20th centuries. There are great similarities. Let me begin just by talking about a book published by an American sociologist, Robert Bellah, who published this in 1965, that's 45 years ago. It's a book he edited on the religions in South Asia and their response to modernity. And at the end of the book, he had a conclusion, and he argues that the reaction of these churches to modernity are of two kinds. The one kind is that some people attach themselves rigidly to their inherited past, and he calls this the turn to neo-traditionalism, and the others reread their sacred texts, go back to the original inspiration of their religious tradition, and in a creative way respond to modern conditions. And I find this quite remarkable. In 1965, to write this, he predicted, if you like, all these fundamentalist groups that you have in every single religion, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindus now, and he predicted this turn to neo-traditionalism. But I'm interested in the other side of religion, that is the creative side. And modernity has challenged all the religions, and I want to go into this. When I say modernity, I mean the arrival of the empirical sciences. I mean the notion of citizenship, and I mean also the ethos that you want to better your life. And I want to explain this. I mean, modernity, first of all, the sciences, and this was a great challenge to all the religions. This was a new way of knowing things, and a more certain way of knowing things, a way of proving things which is impossible in the realm of the spirit. And therefore this was a threat. And secondly, some people think that sciences secularize society. They argue this, and they say the sciences make everything becomes an object. That is, everything you study becomes an object. You are superior to it. You look at it through your microscope. You control it. You measure it. And therefore, the totality is broken up into little pieces. And the scientist looks at the little pieces and loses the sense of the totality. And therefore, as you know, that there are Muslims who reject the modern sciences and they want to Islamize the sciences because they fear that this will lead to secularism. It is interesting that Gulen is quite different. Gulen treasured the sciences, but if you read him carefully, he makes it very clear that for him the sciences are not simply knowledge to control, but he marvels at the Creator. That is, he writes about this, that biology is so wonderful because every new thing that you discover makes you marvel about God, the origin, the light, the logic, the logos, and so for him this becomes therefore a form of contact with the transcendent reality, and his schools want to communicate the spirit. So I want to say a few words about the science as challenge. In the Catholic Church too had trouble with the sciences. Secondly, there is citizenship. That is, in the pre-modern societies, you have sovereigns, and the duty of people is to be obedient. You are loyal to your sovereign, and therefore the idea of citizenship, that we are co-responsible for society, was something new and quite radical. And when this emerged in Europe through the French Revolution and through English thought, the Catholic Church rejected this.